And so Joe and I really enjoy the indie film idea where you can kind of create yourself without having people in suits above you tell you exactly what you're going to change and who you're going to cast and how it's going to work. So we kind of like the freedom of that. And I don't know that we're going to be ready to give that up anytime soon.
Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today we're going to have as our teachers in class a duo, David Alford, founder of Cross Purposes Productions, and Joseph Stam, actor and director for Cross Purposes Productions. They've created a film called Searching for the Elephant, and it was so interesting. I got to screen it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about their faith journey. And I had some questions in regard to how they reflect that in the movie, and so I feel they handled answering that really well, and it kind of answered my understanding of how they're in the faith-based, Christian-based film genre community. So anyway, I want you to welcome to class today, David and Joseph.
I'll go first. I'll keep it short. so I became a Christian as a very young boy, grew up in a Christian family and upbringing, and was always involved in the arts. And so it's been an ongoing life journey to find out how being a Christian works with being in the arts. And I started off as a kid really involved in theater through school and even in my church and stuff like that. And so I got a good foundation at the beginning of how to incorporate who I am and what I do. But the arts is a communal form of art and theater and filmmaking is you make it with a group of people. And so it's an opportunity to work with people who are like-minded, but I've often found myself in situations where with people who are not like-minded. And so it's a really interesting opportunity to get a chance to get to know people. And at first you might think that's a bad thing, but honestly, it's been good because it's taught me to be who I am and be okay with who I am and express it openly. And then getting me a chance to really learn how people different than me express themselves and get us to have a chance to have heart to heart talks. So it's really been a great opportunity. And film has kind of carried that on as well, too. On our film sets, we're a faith-based film company, but occasionally we have people on our film sets who are not Christian at all.
Isn't that
And
what
getting
we're
a
isn't
chance for
that what
them.
we're called to?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't have a litmus test that says you can't be on our set unless you're a Christian. Now we know a lot of these people and have relationships with a lot of these people, but getting a chance for them to walk through us in one of the most stressful moments of your life, which is the moment you're making a film, that can create some of the most awful situations ever. And for them to watch you handle it as a Christian is a great opportunity to be a witness. So making films has been a fantastic opportunity for that. And expressing ourselves through art is something that I find draws me a lot closer to God.
Why not? Because he's the originator of the masterpiece, right?
Yes, exactly. The greatest creator and artist of them all is just someone we can learn from. And I feel like by practicing art, we learn a little bit more about who he is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've listened to some backstories of The Chosen being filmed. I follow Dallas Jenkins. And then I don't know if you remember the movie The Tip of the Spear
Yes,
about the
yes.
missionary. And the lead actor in that, I believe, had lived a gay lifestyle, and but yet they had him on, and there was a lot of backlash from the Christian community. But the fact of the matter is you now have a young man who may or may not have been seeking prior to that is now playing the part of a missionary and having to repeat over and over the gospel. Like, how is this a bad thing, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to hide our light under a bushel. So I think it's awesome. I think that's a great part of your story.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I grew up in a Christian home as well. And so I became a Christian when I was a lot younger, but when I think often for people who grow up in a Christian bubble, you really discover what that means when you're actually out on your own. And you actually have to find your own faith and your faith for your own. And so it's definitely been a journey for me for self-discovery of finding my identity in Christ and also trusting him, and I mean, filmmaking, you have to have a lot of trust because it's a leap of faith.
Every
Filmmaking,
day is a
every
leap
day
of
is a leap of faith. And you in creating stories, it's so you want to create something that's so personal to you, and so and you want to see yourself reflected up on screen, no matter if you're a writer, director, or actor. And so it, our faith really just doesn't have a way of not being reflected on screen because it's personal. It's who we are. These stories are, are who we are. And so our faith is just naturally going to make its way on screen. And so we always try to be careful about not forcing the issue and not treating ourselves as pastors or preaching sermons. We still need to remember that we are artists telling stories, but also that's just a huge part of who we are. And so I think for me, I mean, I love to make films that inspire people, but I also really appreciate films that will challenge people, and especially if we know we're going to have a Christian audience, challenging them. And that means that we have to do a lot of work before we can tell a challenging story. Is we have to challenge ourselves and our beliefs and our faith in these different ways before we're able to tap into that for the screen. So for me, my faith journey and the filmmaking journey always impact each other. I don't want to say they're not one and the same, obviously, but they're always interweaving together. And when you're creating something so personal, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think asking questions is a big part of it. And I think our films and our stories do ask questions because we're not afraid of the answers. And, we're not afraid of what we're gonna find. So the questions we ask are sometimes hard questions because we believe people who see our movies will hear those questions and go, "Yeah, I've got those questions too." And I'm a firm believer that questions don't lead us away from God. True, honest questions lead us to God. And I think that's what art can do in a very powerful way.
Yeah, and especially when, like, if somebody's genuinely seeking and not just trying to undermine an agenda of somebody who's professing to be a Christian, then they're going to hear what's the truth and they're going to be more receptive. It's going to be more fertile ground than somebody who just comes into it wanting to pick stuff apart, or find out where the flaw is. Because some of the story of redemption and salvation and how this world is broken and evil and so much going on is, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. The Lord called me to write my story. It's a 2-part memoir. The first part was up through meeting my ex-husband, and I had a lot of abuse in my childhood, and people struggle and come up to me and want to understand how I could possibly have faith in the Lord when that was allowed to happen to me as a child. Mm-hmm. And the same with like all the sex trafficking that's going on now. If the Lord pulls someone out so that they don't have to endure further evil, as it says in Isaiah, then why aren't all these little children just pulled out of it? And that's what they all want to know. So the hard questions are what we need to be willing as Christians, and especially as creatives, if we're putting that out there. He's now called me to do deeper healing retreats based on the very Holy Spirit healing that I talk about, and that how that healing began even younger. So I love that. And that leads to my next question. I did watch the screener of, let me get the title right. Searching for the Elephant. Okay. So I have multiple questions about that, but you guys' stories led into this question. As I watched it, I don't see overtly God mentioned, Jesus mentioned, the gospel presented, and I get it. You just said you guys aren't pastors or what have you. The more of the faith kind of situation was when not you, when he was talking to the soldier's wife, and she was talking about the forgiveness and stuff. So is that, I haven't seen your other movies, so is that really kind of how you come into it, so that it's not, and I get it, not beating somebody over the head with the Bible or the gospel, but more an alluded to your faith? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think for us it wasn't something that we're trying to cover up either, or make it it needs to be super subtle. I mean, I think what we are just looking for is authenticity and realness. And so for us, it was important for this film, especially with some of the topics it's dealing with addiction and PTSD and things like that. I mean, these are things, and just it deals with isolation as well, and family and generational trauma, and all these things are things that a lot of people deal with, Christian and not,
Sure.
And it was really important for us people to see their lives reflected up on screen, and to relate to that and to be able to see their life up there, and then yes, to have go through all the trenches of how evil you're saying, as you were saying, life can be sometimes, and then you know show that there is hope and there is redemption and that there is forgiveness and there is something beyond ourselves. And at the same time, it was really important to us not to then revert into a Hallmark movie and say, oh, that then everything's fine. Once God comes into the picture, now everything's perfect and everything it ties up with a neat bow.
Right.
No, I mean, like,
Which
there's
isn't true.
consequences to actions still. That's not real life. We know that the many stories in the Bible don't end with a nice bow on
Puppies and
top.
rainbows
There's
are not, well, rainbows, but puppies aren't
but
promised.
yeah, yeah. And so it was really just about being honest, and then the side of that, other than the authenticity for us, is just leaving space, because art is really beautiful in that it's subjective, and that when you're watching something or you're reading something, you're going to come with your own experiences and your own life, and you're going to project it onto what you're reading, and you're going to get something completely different from it, than the person next to you. And so the beautiful thing about that is we want to preserve that, because in that space, if we're not hitting people over the head with what we're trying to say and what our themes are, if we step back and leave a little bit of space there, some people would say that the art works for people to get what they need from it, and I would say that God works in that space to uh, for people to get what they need from it. And so that's always really important to us, to take a step back and not micromanage all of it and let God work, because it's amazing. After some of the films, people will come to us and say, tell us what the film meant to them, and it was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Like, we were the ones making it, and I never would have. But it makes sense now that they say it. It's totally there on the film. Yeah, yeah, of course it is. But I never would have thought of that before now, and we're at the premiere of the movie, and so, like, that's kind of the incredible thing. And then we just have to take a step back and say, oh, that wasn't us. We didn't make that happen. We weren't even thinking about it. But we left, at least stepped back enough to let God work in it.
Yeah, our other films are much more evangelical in nature than this one is, and it was mainly because of the topic itself.
Right.
We didn't want to become flippant or trivial with this topic, because it does impact so many people. And even once God is brought in and a person finds God's light in their life in some small way or shape or form, it often takes time for that to blossom and for it to change everybody involved. So it didn't seem honest, and it didn't seem legitimate to have God's name mentioned, and all of a sudden everybody in the movie's completely well and happy and singing in the choir with white robes on at the end, because that's not often how people's lives go in this situation. It takes time. So we introduce God almost like a thumb drop symbol of God's love into the situation, and you start to see a chain reaction that happens from that moment. And you can see it starting to spread through the family. You can see hope starting to emerge. And we decided that for this story, that's as far as we could go with it, and be honest, because what we didn't want people to do is look at this movie and go, that's not the world I see.
Right.
So if you're presenting this artificial Hallmark movie world, then at the same time your religion must be an artificial Hallmark religion. And we thought we didn't want to reflect badly on Christ or the others by creating this false reality that's not what most people we talked about when preparing for the film was experiencing.
Well, and even I know many, many Christians who have dealt with addiction, and even to this day have had setbacks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just because you
Yeah.
become a Christian doesn't mean that it automatically, and that's what I talk about in my story about the abuse and the wounds that I've had. My book is called Butterfly Stitches, and a butterfly stitch is a medical item
Yes.
that when your cut isn't deep enough for actual stitches, they put a butterfly stitch on. Well, with a butterfly stitch, you have to take some ownership in cleaning it out and readdressing it. Whereas with regular stitches, so I talk about how the Holy Spirit does that. So yes, there are one-time miracle, come to Jesus healings for people. Absolutely. I believe that. I believe he's still in the business of that. But for the most part, I think most of us are healed in a process, because that grows us into more like him and allows our story and us to be used to comfort others with the comfort we've received. And so nobody like does the I dream a genie, you're all cured from, especially from addictions of all kinds, porn, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. So you're right. There's no, it does make Christians and non-Christians feel a little cynical when in a movie it's like all, la-di-da, So we don't want to do that for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and the consequences linger even after redemption has occurred. A life isn't flipped around and all of a sudden all the consequences are gone. We learned that from watching characters in the Bible go through their stories. Their consequences sometimes linger after God's fixed everything,
Right.
and the price is still there to be paid. And we wanted to acknowledge that. We felt like that was an honest thing to do. We wanted to make sure that we were being faithful to that in the story.
And the hope that's there almost means more because of it, because it's real.
It was hard
And
earned
so
in the movie. Like the hope wasn't just like a little fairy dust. It was hard earned. You went forward and backwards and forward and backwards, and then even the way you ended it wasn't like everybody was okay. There was still work to do. So you could almost do a part two.
Yep.
I don't know if we can find any more of those fake tattoos for Joseph to wear if we those were hard
We're
to
gonna have to.
So how did the title come about?
That was about you.
That was a ranching term. So we had the story was written to go on a farm, and so we found a ranching terminology. And there's this idea that every year, the ranchers would go out and hire workers or hands to work for that year on their ranch. And they would look up men that they thought would do a good job, that were honest, that wouldn't rob them, that would be around and do the work. And there were those men that they would spot in the crowd who were always kind of had their heads looking up and they were looking for better situations. You'd hire them, you'd bring them on your ranch, they'd work for you, but their heads were always looking for something a little bit better. And you knew as soon as the first thing that came along that was slightly better, they would dump you like a hot potato and off they'd go. Because they're what you call searching for the elephant. They're looking for that perfect scenario, that perfect situation that simply doesn't exist. And on a ranch, there's no place to hide an elephant. So they're looking for that. And so that terminology seemed to fit with what the characters were going through at the time. And that seemed to be a clever way to title the film.
So interesting, too, because you're like, just from the title, I'm like going, okay, now what does that mean?
Yeah.
We were talking about that. We were talking about we come up with the title for our new project, and I'm like, I don't think I title things well. I think I make it too clever and too hard to follow.
For people,
like, no, it's interesting.
Well, for people who are curious people and they want to know, then it kind of goes, oh, what does that mean? And that makes them want to watch it. For people who aren't curious people, they're just like, what does that mean? And move on. So
I work in accounting, and I help people with their small businesses and come up with names and stuff. And I love when people have intelligent wit and are clever about the titles. Like I was watching a commercial the other day, and it was it was called Lemonade, which it was an insurance company. And I immediately go, oh, they took lemons and made lemonade. That's insurance. And I don't know if that's why they named it that, but that just makes sense to me.
Yeah, I love it.
So I don't know. I may reach out to them to find out and confirm my intelligent wit if I got it, or it might be totally wrong.
They say, sure,
yeah, whatever, lady.
It's hard to pick movies in this day and age because there's so many movies that every title you pick, there's another one that's already out there that's got the same title. So you're looking for something that's kind of unique and kind of unusual in the hopes that it'll help your film stand out from the herds of other films that are out there.
Yeah.
Get it? Well, and not only that, I've gotten so frustrated because I'm old. I'm 63. And I get frustrated with people who seem like they can't. Like, have we lost all creativity? Is it AI's fault? Whose fault is it that all we can do is seem to regurgitate movies with just a little bit of a twist, but you can see it from the start that it's the exact same movie as X, Y, or Z. The same with songs. People taking old school lyrics and sticking them in their song and acting like it's new. And I get it. That's creative. And I'm not judging anybody, but it bugs me. I'm like, come on, can't we come up with something new? And every time I look at the theater, the only thing new out there that it seems like is all horror movies too. Like,
Well, the numbers behind the film, like 2 or 3 or 4, that's the new part. It's, this does 2 or this is 3. The numbers are the new parts.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like that is something that we talk about a lot of just um people have seen a lot now. People have seen a lot of entertainment, and in some ways it's harder to come up with something that feels original. It feels like you have to push a little bit more because like the time in history we are consuming more entertainment than ever, so we've just seen a lot, and a lot of things are cliche now that weren't 10 years ago. And so for us it's just knowing, okay, like even everyone subconsciously knows what standard coverage for a scene is, if you're shooting a scene, because we've just seen it so much, and they might not be able to consciously tell you, but subconsciously they know. And so for us it's always trying to figure out what's the most interesting way we can attack this scene and flip it on its head. How can we attack shooting this scene and flip it on its head, so that that to kind of subvert those expectations, because audiences have more expectations than ever now.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the movie business is an extremely expensive business. It's an incredibly expensive art
Yeah.
form, and so everyone wants the safe financial bet. They want the movie that they know will be a hit and that lots of people will see.
Yeah.
And so they try to formulate it in a way to make it seem like it's going to be like this other movie made that kind of money. So we'll make that kind of money if we do the same thing they did.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of reward for creativity in film. But unfortunately, in this day and age where films can be made, with iPhones now, there's an independent growing audience of for theater and for movies, of people who want to see something truthful. They want to see something fresh and original and creative and personal, and there's room for that in the market now in a way that there wasn't before. So in some ways it's a very exciting time to be making movies.
I was going to ask you that question too, but I'm going to ask that at the end because I have another question about this particular movie and your other movies. Like, are these based on a book, on somebody in particular, or who are they based on? And do you guys write them, or do you just produce and direct? Have you had people submit screenplays to you?
Yes to all the above.
Yes. Everything you just said. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
who wrote this
I've had
movie?
people do that, but all the films we produced so far have just been written by us.
Yeah.
And so, or by David, or by both of us. And so, yeah, and we and now I'm blanking on the rest of your question.
But we sit down with an idea, and it's
Whether it's real. Yeah.
whether it's real or not. They're not real stories. They're all fictional stories. At this point in time, we've not done any. We've written some screenplays based off real stories, but we haven't produced them yet.
Or off of
These
books
stories have
from
been stories
someone?
that
No?
I'm sorry.
Or off of a book that somebody may have written?
Just a historical event, actually,
Oh,
an
okay.
actual historical event. We wrote a screenplay based off that just recently, but it's not in production at this point in time. But for me, I come from a theater background, so telling stories is something I've been doing for my entire adult life. And so when it comes time to tell a story, I find certain key elements that I look for in stories that make it producible and what I think will be responsive to an audience. And these last, 4 or 5 films we've made have been my opportunity to get a chance to see if my instincts actually are in the right ballpark. And unfortunately for us, so far they seem to have been pretty much so. And so that gives us more confidence in picking stories the next time around, because it seems like the key elements we're looking for, if they're there, it seems to be pleasing to the audience and effective in storytelling.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
gotten so crazy, not only with movies, but like video games or on the internet, and it's so violent. I play one game on my phone. It's called Words with Friends, so that I can keep my old mind, going. And I'm
Yeah.
too cheap to pay for no ads. So I'm seeing this ad for a game called it's a movie or a TV show, Romance Island or whatever the heck, Love Island or something. And I'm like, so they have people naked in this game, and you make them hook up with each other and stuff. And I'm like, so now we're even in a game going this, we're that much debauchery so I would think people would be starving. I mean, not, and you guys was very good quality, but I'm just saying starving regardless almost of the quality to get something that's not just garbage or just gratuitous with sex and violence and foul language
Yeah.
and what have you. I mean, I think these things can be depicted without all that, and you guys have proven that.
I hope so. Yeah, because that's also the other thing to get attention. The bar keeps getting pushed further and further out because everyone's trying to out sensationalize the person next to them. And what that does is that desensitizes us all to everything, and it all becomes numbing after a while. And I'm afraid that's what we're running into now. So what we look for in stories is truth. We find truth to be extremely refreshing, and we believe other people will too. If they find what they know to be true, but we have to be honest with the audiences and not blow smoke, because if we do, they pick up on that and they'll turn us off.
And it cuts deeper too, so a lot of times. I mean, like a really salacious image or a violent image or something like that may be shocking in the moment, but it's not really going to stick with you long term, and it's not going to really cut very deep. And so, one, it's just kind of the logistics of like art and what really stays with people and what really means something to people, and I think a lot of times when you go and you show everything and you have no restraint in your art, then it's a lot less effective actually, and it's just kind of distracting. And so it's all about actually connecting with people, not just putting on a circus show.
Sure. And really when we think about it, I mean, I don't know. I think some people do go to try and catch all the sensationalism, but the fact of the matter is what is something in the course of 365 days that happens more often in your life? Violent murders and killing and vampires and whatever, or interactions about real life situations. I think, and everybody wants to say those kind of things are boring, but I think when they touch on a chord and when it's something that's part of your experience and your story, you are going to be way more drawn in and way more receptive to what's happening and what's going on.
Yes, I agree. I find that sometimes if I've sat through a violent movie, it doesn't, like Joe said, it doesn't stick. It doesn't mean anything. But I can watch a film that has a scene that's very impactful on an emotional, internal level, and I will be deeply moved by that
Yeah,
moment. And I'll be deeply impacted by it in a way that watching 50 people get shot by a machine gun means nothing to
right.
me. But that particular moment, that character's choice or decision or their sacrifice changes me, and I think about it for days. And I'm like, if I'm going to be a movie maker, I want to make those moments. I don't care anything about the rest of it. That stuff, all like Joe said, it disappears after a few minutes. You've forgotten it ever happened. But with those movie moments where it touches your life and makes you think, that's what's important in life. Boy, if you get those movies moments to happen, that will stick with people for a long time.
Awesome. And so I didn't watch all the way through the credits. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Tim
Sweet
Shea
Tim.
on his movies at the end, there's like I think a QR code or a website or whatever. Do you guys do something like that when the movie comes out so that people, if they want to reach out, if they want to understand more or want to seek more, do you like have a way for them to reach out to you guys?
Our website,
Yeah.
yeah, our website has direct communications to us,
Oh, cool.
and it's a great way to see all of our films because, like Elephants, like we said, is a unique film. Our other films have quite a different family take to them that I think a lot of families will thoroughly enjoy. And all of our films are there, and what platforms you can watch them on because they're on streaming platforms around the world. You can connect with us there and connect with our other entire catalog of films as well.
Yeah, that's crosspurposes.productions. That's our website, and all of our films out there.
Perfect. What do you think? And I asked my other faith-based directors and producers that came on, what do you think? Where do you think the film industry in regard to like faith-based films is heading?
Well, it's a big question.
Good question.
I'm old enough to remember when Christian music kind of started breaking into the secular markets and started showing up on pop radio, and I think we're kind of at that crossroads right now with Christian film, and that's kind of moving from like a mom and pop cottage industry, and it's starting to get some ground to it and starting to kind of break into film at a little more mainstream level. And what that does is it brings more money into the marketplace for faith-based films, which is not a terrible thing, but it also brings a lot of hands into it that have kind of different ideas and different goals than we have. And so Joe and I really enjoy the indie film idea where you can kind of create yourself without having people in suits above you tell you exactly what you're going to change and who you're going to cast and how it's going to work.
Right.
So we kind of like the freedom of that, and I don't know that we're going to be ready to give that up anytime soon.
I would imagine because they're going to be people want to come in and tweak what and they're already doing that in society right now. The definition of a Christian, the definition of faith, they're putting the trappings of religion on someone and trying to call that their faith. Or if somebody falls, has a dramatic public fall, they place it on the whole faith community. And so I think having other people come in and try and define what you're wanting your films to say would be difficult. How do you buck back at that, especially if they've given you some money to move along?
Right.
Yeah.
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 Therefore, taking creative control. Yeah.
Right.
We're both a little bit of control freaks, so it's a little hard to give that up.
A little bit. Not that we're not willing to work with people, obviously. Like it's not that, and we're not always suspicious of people that they're trying to mess up our art. We're not paranoid, but at the same time, yeah, we do like to have veto power. Right? At least that's far when it comes to the art. It's in an interesting place right now, and I'm interested to see where the faith-based industry will go. I mean, I think that right now the faith-based industry really knows how to make really inspiring films, and we've made a lot of them. And so it'll be interesting to see as faith-based hopefully becomes less of a genre in and of itself. Because it almost is at this point.
It's almost like its own brand name right
you
now.
go there and it's like, oh, faith-based is going to involve God in some way, healing in some way, and a car crash a lot of times, and it's going to be inspirational. That's what usually people think of, I think, when they think of faith-based film right now. And so it'll be interesting to see as it grows, and as you have faith-based films in every genre, you have faith in every genre of film, what that's going to look like and what that's going to do. And I hope that there's more variety coming as far as that, because inspirational films, we need them. There is a place for them, but there's also a place for a lot of other genres and types of films.
Well, and people understanding that clearly our faith should be an inspiration to others to want to come to know Jesus. But at the same token, in the trenches, in the hard work of getting hope and building your faith is not always, every bit of that is not always going to be pretty and not always going to be inspiring. In fact, some people, well, you never know, it might inspire them not to make the dumb choices you made to get into that situation in the first place.
Well, and I hope that, a lot of the great traditional art was made by Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the classical art that you go to see in museums was painted by people of faith. And there was nobody above them saying, well, we did this, and if you want to be successful, you've got to do what we're doing. And so there was no one doing that. There was a freedom of expression in art, and a freedom that you're expressing your art for the Lord, and that you just do it to the best of your ability is a freedom I hope we have another renaissance in the Christian film industry, that people can express themselves through their art without feeling like they have to match the brand name of Christian filmmaking, which we've kind of set for ourselves, which tends to be extremely narrow and eliminates a lot of people who would watch the films otherwise.
Right. And again, it goes back to, that's why I was asking you that question at the beginning is, does a faith-based or does a Christian film have to mention God every other sentence? So, and I'm not saying that, I'm being a little facetious, but, sometimes people get in their head that there is going to somehow be a gospel presentation and an invitation somewhere in the movie and a come to Jesus miracle, which he is in,
whether it belongs or not.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I hope that we can find art that does a lot of different things. And I hope we can learn the freedom to express ourselves in many different ways. I mean, those movies are great. Those are evangelical. And like I said, we've got movies that are like that. So I'm not going to knock that at all. I think that's fantastic. I just think we also need to mature into other areas of life as well, so we can also minister to people there. And because there's more than that going on. And so I think that with people, when they go to movies, they go to see some sort of reflection of life. They go to because they want to feel something. They want to lose the numbness that is part of their life. And that's a great opportunity to meet people where they're hurting. Right. And I think films can do that in a lot of areas. But no, I think films need to lead you to the truth. And that's my measure of a good film. When I watch a film, I'm like, is that film lying to me? Is it taking me away from the truth of God, or is it pointing me toward the truth of God? And I never want to be part of a film that takes people and lies to them and chases them away from the truth of God. If I've done that, I've forsaken what I'm here on this planet to do.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure that the truth is there. Does it have to be evangelical every single time? I don't think so, but I think the truth has to be there every single time, or we've got no business making movies.
Well, and you know, the old tent revivals and what have you, which I got saved at one. But anyway, is that lifestyle evangelism is not necessarily you saying all the time the gospel. It's how you're living, and so you guys show how people are living out their faith and helping one another in the film. So you're right. In one hand, it doesn't have to be evangelical all the time, but it is by just virtue of who we are. So I think that's awesome. That yes, that you know we definitely don't want to leave the baseline of the truth, and some people can get very legalistic about that too. So that's awesome, and I really appreciate that. I will go to your website and take a look at some of the others. I try to read the whole book when I have a guest or watch the whole movie. I do all that stuff, and it can get exhausting because you know I'm on my third season.
Yeah.
And I'm finishing my second book. It's going to come out in September, so I've got all that going on too. Got some play.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. So one thing I ask every one of my guests, and each of you will have to answer, is I ask them for a life nugget. What is the one thing you wish you knew sooner, or that someone had told you sooner?
Ooh, one thing I wish I knew sooner. Oh, for me, gosh, this goes back farther, you know. So, but I think I wish I'd learned when I was Joseph's age. I think I would wish I'd learned that it's okay to be yourself and it's okay to be a little bit different. That God doesn't call us to all be the same. He made us individually, and so we hit life individually in different ways, and that's okay. As long as your radar is set on God's direction, it's going to come out a little differently in each of us, and that's actually a blessing and not something that we should be worried about.
He didn't make us identical. We're made in his
No, he
image,
didn't.
but we're not made identical.
Right, exactly.
I think one of my favorite quotes for a little while that I've kind of taken with me is "This too shall pass." It's kind of a cliche quote, but it's a really nice reminder whether things are really good right now and life is really working out and a film just came out and it's doing well and it's connecting with people. Just having that understanding that this is good right now and I need to enjoy this for this moment because it's not going to last and that's okay. Like that's it's and same thing, and that's really comforting when things are really hard and when you're in a time of life where you're really hurting. Just being able to look and keep your head above water and just say, you know, that this isn't forever, and this whole life isn't forever, and it doesn't matter very much. I mean, like this life doesn't matter very much. What matters is anything we can, you know, carry with us to eternity, you know. And so just keeping my head above water and just saying it's okay, enjoy right now for what it is. It's gonna pass, whether it be good or bad, and that's okay. You know, that's something that's kind of been comforting to me and a good reminder, even in good times.
You know, I heard Denzel Washington say something very similar to that. I don't know if you've seen the clip. It was on Instagram, I think, but he was on some podcast where he was around a table and he started talking about how the Oscar and the this and or the that and this too shall pass, and the bad times and the rejections from he actually got rejected from some parts, and people find that hard to believe once somebody has won an Oscar and he's like this too. So he was just going on about how this too shall pass because you know nothing is permanent except eternity. So that's awesome, and that's incredible that you're getting that at 21, because at 21 I don't even want to go into what I was doing.
Well, I'm 22 now.
Oh,
so
he's a wizened.
Oh, he's
22.
22.
Yeah, gone over the mountaintop, and now the beard will be coming down, and the wisdom will be pouring
Trust
down.
me, you would not have wanted to see me a year ago.
Yes, boy, tattoos everywhere.
Yeah, tattoos everywhere.
That washed off, but that's okay.
Searching for the Elephant was really just a documentary about my 21-year-old life. Yeah.
Now he's the sage. Now we'll
Yes.
Well, this has been awesome, guys. I love that it's such a unique group of people that Frontgate keeps throwing out there, the different people who reach out on behalf of all of you and the creatives, but also that faith that's interwoven with all of us that we can talk about. But like you said, I mean, real life, the truth about what's going on. I talked about some very raw and real things in my book, and I have had both Christians and non say, like, I don't know that I can handle this being said like this. And I'm like, well, I was called to say it. And I'm not graphic or whatever, but it's important that what we're doing is the truth, because I've had even more people come up and say, start crying that, oh my gosh, I would never say this out loud, but I've walked your exact journey. And now I have the inspiration and the hope to say it out loud so that I can start healing. So,
See, and that's what it's all about. Like that's when you know, oh, okay, this was all
yeah.
worth it. You know, me putting all this time and effort and love and tears into this book, it was worth it. I mean, that's what it was like for us hearing people after screenings, you know, talk about what it meant to them, the you know how they saw their life reflected on screen and the hope that they gave them, even people I talked to about getting help, you know,
Right.
and getting into recovery and everything after that. I mean, it was just amazing. Some programs want to start using it as a part of their program, some
Awesome.
drug recovery places, so that they can, you know, because they think it reflects something very real and then gives you that hope. And so yeah, that means everything. So it's like, oh, okay, well then it was worth it, you know.
Yeah.
He promises it
And
won't
yeah,
come
it's a
back
really
void,
beautiful.
and that's what we're called to do. I mean, that whole verse about working together for good isn't just so that we can go out and he's promising us a Lamborghini and a great house and millions of dollars. It's about taking
Yeah.
what we went through and helping it work together for good for others and to help others understand and grow closer to him. So I think that's awesome that they want to use it for, those programs. I mean, because you didn't do some pie in the sky, he's automatically all okay. And I really do kind of like it that it's left where he's not necessarily healed, that he's got some more life that he's going to go out and work on. And that's important because they say that anyway, secular or faith-based, that like an alcoholic is always an alcoholic. They have that battle the rest of
Yeah.
their life. And that doesn't mean they
Yeah.
don't love the Lord less or their faith is less. Yeah,
No, no,
That's right. That's
not at all.
absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
we present ourselves as perfect, we'll find that nobody identifies with us.
absolutely.
You
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and we'll find ourselves liars because
Yes.
yeah, it was. I mean, for that was a huge thing about attacking that character and meeting with people who, you know, did say that as well. The people who had been, you know, not using for 10 years, but they, you know, once an addict, always an addict, sort of thing. And so there was their mentality. And so yeah, it was just incredible to see that, and also understanding, like you were saying, that it, you know, your art isn't always going to be for everyone, and it shouldn't be. If it's going to mean something, if it, you know, if it's really going to go out there and you're going to put yourself on a limb to really say something that's important to you, it's not going to connect with, not everyone is going to need to hear this. And I wouldn't want to make something that is good for everyone, because then that means that it has
Yeah,
nothing to it.
you
You
can't.
know?
If you're going to please everyone, then you're pleasing no one. And it's going to
There you
resonate
go.
with who
That's
it's
exactly right.
meant to resonate with. And I make the
Yeah.
joke that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's gin and tonic. And I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
so and the Lord
I like
knows who
that.
that needs to go to. I did not sell millions of copies of my book, but the copies I did sell had people come to me and talk to me. I've had people pick it up, or even go to the Amazon page as they were ordering it and start crying because of the cover. It's a very
Wow.
provocative, bold cover. I've had Christians say they didn't think I needed to do it that way, but the Lord called me to my book, to the title,
Yeah.
to the cover, to everything. And it has done what he has set out for it to do. And that's all I can, I just need to be
That's all we
obedient.
can do, isn't it? Yep,
Yep.
that's what's
Yeah.
important.
Well, you
Absolutely.
guys are
Well,
you guys are
congratulations.
hilarious. I love this. I can't. Do you guys have some real quick before we end? Is there something on the horizon? Like, what's the next thing coming out behind this movie?
Well, we're
Yes.
writing a new script right now based on the book of Ecclesiastes, and that is not the cheeriest subject, but has been really exciting to take such a big concept, which some people can see as slightly negative,
I
but grill
love
it down to its
Ecclesiastes.
essence. Oh, I
I
see.
love that so
Most
much.
artists do because it's
Yeah.
very real.
Because it's very real and it's very honest. It's very different. It like really taps into some very real feelings that anyone
Yeah,
will.
Christian or non, can
Yeah,
identify
Absolutely.
with.
everyone will come to the point where they feel like everything is worthless, and so it taps into that, and then offers eventually a perspective on it. And yeah, no, I love the book so much, and so it's we're exploring that through this romance film, and so yeah,
It's a
Oh,
different
I'm so
style of movie for us.
excited.
We're really excited about
Well,
it.
I can't
yeah.
wait to hear what is your I mean, I get it. You're just writing it. But like generally, how does that process go? Will it be a year from now it might come out or
That's a money question
oh,
too. I mean, once we get the script done and get all the funds together to shoot it, then it's a matter of getting it shot. This one's a real different technique than what we've ever used before. We're talking about using some different kind of styles of shooting. So it'll probably take us a year and a half or so to get it shot and then post production, and then it will come out. So unfortunately, movies don't come out
no.
quickly. It takes about two and a half years to finish one, and we're just on the cusp of this one. Just coming off Elephant, we're just now getting started on this one. So it'll probably be a year or two before it's
Well, if
completely
I'm
done.
still alive, if the Lord intends for me to be here longer, my daughter hates it when I say that.
I'm
I'm
sure.
divorced and I'm trying to date, and it's just awful. So I'm torn between some days going, you could come right now, Jesus.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
understand.
if I'm
Yeah.
around, I would love to have you back for the next movie because I would love to see
Oh, thank you.
Ecclesiastes. In fact, if you need any bit part players or anything like that, because I just think that's awesome.
There you go.
So much
Okay.
fun. Well, fellas, thank
Well,
you so much for this. And I will reach out and let everyone know involved when it's going to air. And so we can tag your YouTubes and all of that good stuff. Thank
okay.
you.
Sounds great. Well, thank you,
Take
Michelle.
care.
It's
You
been
guys
joy to
have a
meet
great
you.
day. Well, I want to thank you all for coming to class today. I had a delightful time talking to David and Joseph. They're, Joseph may be a little old soul, and David and he balance one another out. They were just delightful to have a conversation with, to hear what they have going on, hear what they have coming up, and kind of their take on how to combine being a creative and artistic with expressing your faith, because who is the ultimate masterpiece maker but our creator? So it was really great getting to talk to them, and I hope to have them back in the future when they have other projects going on. You can reach out to them on their website. All the connection information will be in the show notes, and you can do the same for us here at Old School. We'd love to hear your feedback. Go subscribe, leave some comments, share the episode, and definitely go take a look at their movies. So thank you for coming to class today, and class dismissed. This episode of Old School with Michele Vrabel is brought to you by Brush with Greatness, a Hawaiian artist studio.